Now, following complaints about the rising cost of cooking gas, the government has ordered the industry authority to step up monitoring and enforcement of the sector. It wants to stamp out hoarding and market manipulation and also drop prices. Arise correspondent Georgina Ndukwe-Ezanyika reports.
Petroleum gas, also known as cooking gas, has become Nigeria's preferred clean cooking fuel after years of campaigns against kerosene and firewood. But that progress is now under threat. For a country that produces gas, why are Nigerians feeling the squeeze? Across Nigeria, the rising cost of cooking gas is straining household budgets. Prices have jumped from about 1,000 naira per kilogram in January 2026 to between 1,500 and 1,700 per kilogram by May 2026. Now, the impact is being felt far beyond the kitchens. For families, it means fewer meals. For small businesses, it means higher operating costs.
It has increased the cost of akara. Then before I was selling, let's say I'm selling the akara 6 for 500, but now I've dropped it to 500. Before they were begging us to be using gas while we are using kerosene. Now, before you know it, because they now see that everybody was using gas now, the thing is quite expensive. I beg, government should help us.
At this meeting hosted by the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Gas, key players in the gas value chain blame multiple taxation, supply constraints, terminal congestion in Lagos, logistics bottlenecks and reduced volumes from the Dangote refinery and NLNG, as well as low buffer stock for the price hike.
There is no cause for panic. Government remain committed to adequate domestic gas supply and to the Decade of Gas initiative as a pathway for cleaner cooking, industrial growth, and energy security. Our message is simple: more supply, fairer distribution, stronger discipline, better outcomes for Nigerians.
I believe that with all the deliveries that are in the pipeline, before the end of July, Honorable Minister, we expect to see a significant improvement in terms of the prices coming down.
So what is the way out? Government and industry stakeholders say solutions include prioritizing the domestic market, improving supply forecasts, and ensuring allocations reach consumers without diversion or delay.
Create a joint government industry monitoring task team to track production, volume, depot prices, inventory levels, and the distribution patterns across the country. This will identify any signals of supply shortage, speculative activities, and market distortions.
However, regulatory gaps remain. The minister has directed the regulatory agency, working with the Nigeria LNG and other major producers, to improve availability, reduce distribution costs, and intensify monitoring while applying sanctions against hoarding and diversion.
NMDPRA and other regulators intensify monitoring, publish market updates, investigate hoarding and diversion, and sanction operators who manipulate the market.
The outcome of this meeting points to improved supply in the coming weeks. But for millions of Nigerian households, real relief will depend on how quickly that promise translates into availability and lower prices in the market. Key players here hope that the government will begin immediate consideration and implementation of all the solutions that have been raised here in order to ensure that Nigerians begin to feel a bit of relief. Georgina Ndukwe-Ezanyika, Arise News.
Now, Arise business analyst Chika Mbonu joins me now to discuss this further. Good morning, Mr. Chika. How are you today?
Abi, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
This is a very serious, this gas thing is very serious. So,
very
because,
serious. And
you know, a lot of families have stopped cooking beans. So, you know, beans takes much time to cook. A lot of people have removed it from the menu. Some families have stopped eating hot meals because of that. And some restaurants now, when you go now and they give you a scoop of beans or spoon of beans that used to cost this particular amount, they have doubled the price because they tell the beans takes a lot of time. But you see, it's always difficult for me to talk about Nigeria because this gas thing is not a new thing in Nigeria, the gas scarcity. It's like Nigeria goes always in circles, and problems go in circles, and we have committees like this, they meet again and the same thing. This is one of the biggest contradictions in the Nigerian energy sector. The fact that we're one of the largest gas producing countries, yet many Nigerians can't afford to cooking gas, it's like a family that has a large poultry farm. The family is hungry. And instead of feeding your family, what you do is you sell almost all your eggs abroad because you can sell it more, get more money from foreigners. And then your family then goes to buy expensive eggs from another country that's importing it, So it's a very difficult issue. And what are the issues here? I mean, in your rundown, in the program, in the stuff that our colleague produced, we produce so much gas, but it does not enough. It doesn't reach a lot of Nigerians, because a lot of it is exported, and as already said, and there being a lot of commitments to long-term contracts also by a lot of Nigerians, and then people sell it to where they can get more money. So the demand is growing more than supply. You had the ladies they interviewed there. A lot of people were telling them before,
to switch to gas,
and then
after that,
the prices so people left kerosene, left charcoal, left firewood, and came to gas. And now look at what's happening. And then which was good, a lot of people moved to gas because it's good for the environment.
Yeah.
Instead of cutting down the trees and so on and so forth. But look at what is happening now. And of course, importing gas is expensive. Anything that you're importing that has exchange rate issues is a problem. And then it has been exacerbated by, again, the Iran-Israeli-US war, that has impacted everybody because gas is also imported. And of course, in Nigeria, the other thing they mentioned during the distribution, even when the gas lands in Lagos, it has to be distributed all around Nigeria. And then people keep padding up their cost and their cost and their cost, And they say middlemen increase prices. See, and I heard there, you do recall when we had the issue of, before Dangote Refinery came on stream, each time you drive beside the filling station, you see the filling station don't have fuel. Meanwhile, there are people outside who have jerry cans of fuel. Or there's a long queue. So the price of every commodity is determined by the demand and supply. So once petrol, for example, became available in Nigeria, all the queues disappeared, all the black market disappeared. It's something. So calling regulatory agencies to be controlling price and all those stuff will not solve the problem. The problem is what? More gas.
So are you saying that strengthened market oversight will only go so far?
It cannot control prices. It's a free market.
But calling these round trippers, the ones that are the operators,
there were
to order.
Listen, there were around trippers before Dangote Refinery. I can give you the illustration.
That's true, yeah.
That each time you see people carrying fuel, I'm going to actually buy petrol in jerry cans, queues and whatever, because it's available. So the issue with gas in Nigeria is what? Supply. And so whatever the government does is to make sure that there are supplies. They're not going to set up agencies now to be monitoring agencies. And it cannot work. It cannot work because you don't tell anybody how much it sells, what it buys.
Well, but there should still be some sort of punitive measures for those distorting the market in that case. If supply is the only response, there must be some
It's a free
stopgaps.
Market. Nobody tells anybody how much you sell rice. Nobody tells you how much you sell this thing. The market determines it. So you go and tell people, now don't sell the gas at this. It doesn't work.
Don't hoard the gas.
In Nigeria, it doesn't work. We've known that already. You're going to create another layer of income for a lot of people. The solution is how do they increase supply of gas in Nigeria? Increasing local processing, keeping more of the gas in Nigeria. You heard them say in the report that one company actually sold all their supply abroad. That's a knowledge I gave to you about a family that has poultry farm. So we need to return more intentionally.
It's a sad reality.
Intentionally in Nigeria. So build more storage also, improve the transportation for the ones that we even have. Logistics, yes. And encourage competition. Let there be more. The more supplies you have, all these things will disappear. And Nigeria should stop all this of price control and all those stuff, and it doesn't work. Let these people, these regulators, go and find out why the gas processing plants that got approvals and this thing are not coming on stream. The more gas plants that we have in the country, the better. But trying to regulate the price is just creating another layer of this money for some civil servants and regulators. Because this Nigeria will know how, there's a time, control the price of rice, control the price of flour. It never works. The price of every commodity, it determines the demand and supply. Dangote Refinery told us. And remember how we used to pass through Christmas holidays and then queue everywhere. But there was supply this time around. So supply is the issue. And the government must work towards making sure that supply. That's my point in this.
All right, let's move on to FGN bonds attracting 1.41 trillion naira bids in June.
I'm a finance person, and there's some news that go out there, and the positivity in this result, what you just said, which that the government came in, the federal government came in, offered 1.2 trillion, and the demand was 1.41 trillion. And so he said, so good, yeah, very good. And so the yield was about above 18%, and so more investors also participated. Compared to May was 265 investors, 394 in June. But why did this happen? Of course, inside this story, is the good and the bad. Now, federal government bonds remain one of the safest investments. That's why, and so investors will earn rather than around 18% from federal government bond than take risk. That's the problem now. Lending to businesses.
Yeah.
So why would I, give my money to federal government, give my money to a loan to, as a bank, to a company that's struggling at 20%, 21%, 22%, when the federal government with no risk is willing to pay me 18%.
It's almost quite clear.
Yeah. So that's the problem. So what does it mean? The private sector, will be suffering. Do you get, are you following me? And that's where so in finance terms, they call it crowding out. You're going to crowd out the private sector because everybody's going to carry his money now. The banks, everybody carry the money and throw into this, and that's what's happening. So everybody's flush with money and are chasing the federal government bonds, and that's a major issue. So, but the higher inflation also, you remember, people want positive returns. That's another thing here because the rate came in at 18%. Inflation now is about 15% or thereabout. So people want positive returns on their money. So you can imagine that rate, So, and it tells you also that banks and pension funds have excess money, and that's what this means also because they came in at 1.2, demand was about 1.4 trillion, and most importantly, which is one thing that a lot of people government has significant borrowing needs. And people are asking me, why is the government borrowing and still borrowing? They borrow in dollar, they borrow in naira, they borrow everywhere. Everywhere there's money to be borrowed, they're borrowing, And I've said it that the concern really shouldn't be that government is borrowing. The concern should be what are they doing with the money that they're borrowing. And the fact that your revenue is increasing, doesn't mean that you shouldn't borrow. Because your salary was 500K a month, and then they move your salary to 700K, and your needs are 1.2 million, you still need to have some deficit, even though your earnings has increased. That's what the case for Nigeria, because Nigeria has so much needs. Remember that a lot of this money goes to where? Even servicing of debt. You saw the report about how much, more than about 6% of the revenues of government goes to servicing of debts. Yet, there's so much to be done. People are angling for new salaries, new projects are happening. So the Nigerian is massive. and the revenue streams are also limited. You know that. And so yes, good that the fact that the subscription was was too much over what the government brought. Yeah. But the issue implicit in that also is the fact that there is not always positivity.
All right, certainly we should never lose sight of the bigger picture, as we always say. If you joined us midway, I've been chatting with Arise business analyst Chika Mbonu. Mr. Chika, I want to thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you again tomorrow.